a person does things that creates injury, loss or harm to another human being or to society, then clearly what we want is for that person to change. For that person to change, they are going to have to learn something. To learn something, I need to be emotionally present. What I found was that actually, if you want me to take on new information, I actually need to feel relaxed. If I don't feel relaxed, then chances are I can't really hear what's going on. So if I want you to, and in society, is it that we want to make changes? We want people that cause injury, loss or harm to change. Now, one of the things that's really important is that if we understand change processes, then one of the things that we learn really quickly is that relapse is a really important part of change. So how can I get that across? Okay, so think about a time that you wanted to lose weight, stop smoking, give up drinking, eat better food, go out less, spend less money, anything like that. Think about a time that you wanted to do that. Then think about from when you had the thought to actually executing it, did you do that in one go? Did you wake up and go, I'm going to do X, and then it just happened? No, there was a process. Some of that process was internal and some of that process was external. And in there was relapse. Now, relapse is a natural part of a change process. It's really important for people to go back and revisit things from a new position to find it doesn't work anymore. The problem that we're really facing here is that we are not willing to accept, quite rightly, relapse in the form of injury, loss or harm to self, other or system. So what we really need to do is get somebody into a state of relaxation where they can take on some new information. We need them to understand that relapse in the form of a crime, relapse in the form of, going out stealing cars or beating up old ladies or whatever it is, relapse in that form will not be tolerated by society. So we're going to have to go on a journey and work this one out. Now, for me, if I just lock someone up, down for many hours a day and leave them in circumstances which bear no relevance to life on the outside, I can't see how I'm going to be able to support somebody to go through that change process, and I can't see how I'm going to see a demonstration of what it might be like when I release you back into society. So what I found, when I went into Wandsworth Prison, I was absolutely amazed at the ingenuity of how we're getting drugs into the prison. And what I learned was that they had people on the outside throwing tennis balls over. And when they got the signal that the tennis ball had landed in the right place, then they could send the tennis ball over with the drugs in. So I thought about this and I thought, wow, there's so much brain power, so much ingenuity, so much creativity going on in a prison, and all put to the worst possible use. So I came with this radical idea. Well, in fact, David and I came up with this radical idea when we were just sort of chatting about it. And we said, What if you put all that ingenuity to good use? All that, I mean, there's some really amazing technical know-how, creativity, making things. What if you took all of that? Neutral prison, because the prison would need to support some kind of business so that people were being given skills, they were producing something, and they were genuinely paying back a debt to society, so that what they were doing became cost neutral, and then leaving with self-esteem, with skills, with a way of earning an income, with more than they came, they were leaving with more than they came in with. And I don't know, maybe that's pie in the sky. I don't see it. I'm an entrepreneur. I have made something out of nothing several times in my life. I started an advertising agency with a desk and a telephone. I started a charity shop with begging for some start-up money. I started a charity from my front room at home. It's only possible to make something out of nothing if the will is there, and if the skills are there, and if the people are motivated in the right way to do that. So I love this idea of a cost-neutral prison, and that instead of hurting people, teach them a lesson, which, you know, we've clearly found hasn't worked. I mean, it just hasn't worked, because the reoffending rates tell you that you could actually say, well, actually, yes, you are going to pay a debt to society because you have created a loss or harm. It's tangible. There are people who've been affected by it. And what we're going to do is we are going to remove you from society. You are going to have certain freedoms taken away from you while we readjust something and work with you in order to create something that pays back to society, that's a living demonstration that everyone can see. Now, if we began in a prison like that, and we started by saying we need to create something that's really productive, really effective, really efficient, and that has community in it, the people who've got, you know, more skills, more on the money, are going to have to look after some of the people who are less able. If it means that then we need to keep something really good and beautiful happening, which we need to get into a dialogue, which means we need to work out how to deal with conflict, which means we need to work out how to get along with each other to be the most productive and beautiful version of ourselves that there is, and I'm given the testing ground in which to try that, then is I've got a far better chance of watching somebody and saying, actually, this person gets it. This person gets it and has demonstrated something that means I'm going to give this guy a chance, I'm going to give this woman a chance, I'm going to give this person a chance to go back in and take that and apply it here when their freedom isn't taken away. So the good news of what I'm describing is that the structures are already there. So what I'm not saying is, I'm not idealistically saying knock all the jails down and get rid of all the people that work in them and, you know, and start all over again and redesign it all. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that there are some perfectly adequate prisons. There are some perfectly good people that work in prisons. There are some people who've done stuff, need to find a readjustment. And what this requires is a change of intention. So all the infrastructure is actually already there. So what I'm proposing isn't going to cost a lot of money. But probably my guess is, knowing what I know about life, probably going to save us a fortune. And when you think about it, of course, because keeping someone in prison is around 40,000 a year. So we're already spending a fortune. And actually, I don't want to spend that kind of money. I think it's a hell of a money. And if there's some way to make that cost neutral, then I would really want to explore that. I would really, really want to explore that. And what I want to say is, I'm not actually against prison, okay? Because I actually believe that a natural part of how humans express their upset and disapproval is through ostracization. And I think you can see that in different tribes and in ancient, even in sort of non-violent communities. Ostracization is a natural way of people saying, well, actually, we don't want you to be part of what's going on because you're not safe. So here we have people with trauma, people who are in shame, a group of people in one building. Where else can you find a group of people for whom the strategies they have used have so obviously not worked, all in one place? And for me, that is an amazing opportunity. That is an amazing starting point. That provides a place where we could see some real change, real shift. We could really demonstrate unity. We could provide an absolute demonstration of what it takes to get to sustainability, to be cost neutral, to be in harmony, and to understand, and to not have this kind of cat and mouse thing. Oh yeah, because of course the other thing, you only get put in prison for that which you're caught for. So, you know, there's a whole nother thing. Just because somebody's been to trial and been found guilty, been convicted of something, that doesn't mean it's the first time they've ever done it. So the other thing that happened to me was when I was sitting with some of the guys and we were talking about these ideas. Because actually, one of the things that's a real problem is there's nowhere in society that you can just go and say, I messed up, help me. Help, because if you've committed a crime, then it's going to invoke a whole system. And what happens is anything to do with you healing is completely lost because you don't count anymore. You don't count anymore. So I've been into 5 prisons, and in those prisons what I've done is I've generally worked with people who've committed violent crimes or high status people on the wings, and we bring them together and we train them in the dialogue roadmap, and then we show them how you can use the dialogue roadmap to mediate disputes between people, and then we get them working, and then we get them mediating disputes. Now, what's been really interesting for me is I've been in 5 prisons, usually have a cohort of between 12 and 16, but we've had as many as 20. Usually have a cohort of between 12 and 16. And so far yet, not one person, and you know, we've had some people on the training who really have had literacy, really bad literacy issues. We've had people who've brought us their medication to show us, you know, some of the mental health issues they have. Had some really highly manipulative people, you know, we've had people all sorts of states, and not one person didn't get it. Not one of those people didn't get it. And a second, because two things that I've heard. One is probably the most shocking thing I've ever heard, which was, we never knew that you could sort out an argument through talking. Now, think about that. Someone says, we never knew that you could sort out an argument through talking. I must question the education system. I have to. That's where I go to. And the second thing, which really, really tickled me, was, of course, when we're preparing to mediate a dispute, when we're working with the parties, we're laying the ground and setting things up so that whatever happens, we create the trust and safety for that conversation to take place. One of the guys said, I never thought I would be having a conversation about having a conversation. And that really tickled me. Now, interestingly enough, one of the things that came up, guys, about why they really like the mediation training, and why once one cohort of being, you've got lots of them want to come after, we always manage to run out of funding, was that when we're going in and saying, actually, I'd like you to be a mediator, I'd like you to learn some skills, I'd like you to put all the things that you know to good use, and I'd like you to see how this works. What the feedback that we consistently get is, we're the first people that have come in that aren't trying to fix them. So usually some of the complaints are that if you're invested in victim awareness or thinking skills, or some of the other courses that go in, and I know there's some marvelous stuff that goes on in prison, and I know that people have life-changing events, but one of the complaints that we've had is, the starting point is, there's something wrong with me and I have to be fixed. And I think I can kind of get with a level of upset and resentment might come with a real or perceived hearing of that message. So when we go in and say, hey, we got something really important for you to do, and we know you can do it, the results have been amazing. I mean, the results have been truly amazing. From changing, a lifer, hardened gang member, saying, actually, this stuff has opened me up, and I want to go into therapy because I can see some disturbance in me that I've never seen before. From people taking a sort of personal responsibility, through to violent disputes on the wing being intervened in by another prisoner, and a murder being committed on the wings. So, okay, so you might say, well, so what? You've been in 5 prisons and, whatever. But for me, I saw true engagement. I saw people who really wanted to be able to do something different. I saw people see another way of looking at the world in which they could imagine themselves navigating differently. And even had one guy who said, Maria, if I'd known this 6 months ago, I wouldn't have murdered my wife. And he was literally at the beginning of an 18-year sentence, which he said he wasn't going to appeal because he deserved to be there. So, Dartmoor Prison, a prison that has the most amazing senior management team. For me, having met them, they are a dream team. I've done quite a lot of work with the managing chaplain in some of the other prisons that I've been in. So we have a real kind of rapport and a real history together of results. And he's taken the dialogue roadmap on in such an amazing way. And there is described as an awesome prison governor who I absolutely just fell in love, and a deputy. And she's taken this very bold step and created what's called an integrated regime. So what this means is that there isn't a wing for the sex offenders. Oh my God, everyone says, how awful, how can you do that? Well, she's making it work. But what she's recognised is that in order to complete that journey into something sustainable, to introduce restorative practices across the whole prison, taking a whole prison approach, actually to become a restorative prison. And we have this amazing opportunity to demonstrate that. Now, I've got ideas, I mean, just. So one of the ideas is that we train some guys as mediators. They are set up properly to do mediation work in the prison using the dialogue roadmap. And then they come out of prison trained and experienced, and anyone who's done mediation training knows how difficult it is to get experience, into a purpose-built mediation service that's run by ex-offenders. Offenders are mentored to be able to go out into the community, engage with the very young people that we talked about at the start of this webinar, because those are the people that are going to have an impact. Those are the people that are going to be able to talk to the kids in a way that's going to reach them. This is the connection. These are the two wires that need to be connected together. We've already done this in a small pilot in London, which is a family mediation service for prisoners. So one of the things that I noticed that really adds to frustration and upset and gets acted out all over the place is when someone in prison is in turmoil or even just a low-level conflict with a loved one on the outside. Or, you know, someone doesn't turn up with the children, or the visit doesn't happen, or they have an argument, or the phone gets slammed down in one of the phone calls, because of course, you know, I'm not saying the family aren't having a hard time, because, you know, that's the hidden sentence, isn't it? The family serving a prison sentence for something they didn't do. Is that when we work with the prisoner and with the family, we can actually, again, we can get that dialogue going. And if things have gone wrong, or they're likely to go wrong, we can manage and set expectations so that when a prisoner is released, they understand and they've had time to get used to what is likely to happen. Because as far as I understand it, one of the first 48 hours are crucial in reoffending rates.